Are you tired of losing every single game and not being able to do anything than just watch how enemy players are flexing their emotes next to your Nexus tower? Worry no more. Do you want to take things into your own hands and become that minion dashing, tornado throwing, Hasaki screaming 1v9 machine that no one can stop? Well, look no further, because today I am going to teach you Yasuo. If you truly want to master this champion, then make sure to watch the whole video in order to get from this to this 100% guaranteed result. By the way, in case I fail to teach you Yasuo, then I will buy you a ticket to the next flight to Mars with one of those Elon Musk rocket ships. But if you end up learning something, then all I ask is to like the video and subscribe. Now simply grab a cup of coffee or some black tea, because we need those brain cells to be working quickly in order to soak up all the valuable knowledge we are about to get. This is the go-to rune page for Yasuo. Conqueror alongside with Brutal gives him loads of damage, and Regeneration plus Sweet Tooth gives Yasuo sustain as well as tiny bit of gold. Some guides out there suggest Spirit Walker instead of Regeneration, but having Spirit Walker makes sense only in certain matchups, like for example 20% slow resistance that you get from it comes handy against Nasus, who has very strong slow ability, but other than that you don't benefit from it so much. When it comes to summoner spells, then Flash is a must. Second spell should be whether Ignite or Exhaust. Ignite when you want to have more kill pressure in the lane, and Exhaust when you are laning against champion that rely on burst damage to finish you off, like Zed and Annie for example. First of all, Yasuo has two passives. One passive is called Resolve, and it grants Yasuo a shield whenever he is damaged when he has full flow. Flow is this white bar below his health bar that is restored through moving. It is also automatically filled up when he uses his ultimate. Every time the flow bar is full, you should look for an opportunity to get a quick trade in with enemy laner. The second part of the passive gives Yasuo double critical strike chance in exchange for -10 critical damage. This is extremely strong when combined with his ultimate, that grants armor penetration on all critical strikes after a successful cast. Knowing what this passive is about is very important later on when we will speak about the itemization of Yasuo. Just so that it would be easier to understand combos later in this guide, I will refer to abilities like they are called on the PC version. The first ability is Steel Tempest. That is a physical damage skill shot which has a charge system that changes the ability's effect on the third cast. The first and the second cast of Steel Tempest is a short range skill shot, where Yasuo lunges and damages enemies in a straight line. The third cast of Steel Tempest is a long range tornado, which damages and knocks up all enemies in a straight line. Steel Tempest can be activated during the animation of Sweeping Blade, and it will transform it into a circular AoE damaging ability. Interesting thing about Steel Tempest is that its cooldown is not affected by ability haste, but is reduced by attack speed instead. After the first Q cast, a timer runs where you have to land another Q in order to gain another stack. If you fail to land the ability during that duration, the stacks resets back to 0. Yasuo's second ability is called Wind Wall, and it is a wall that blocks enemy projectiles for 4 seconds. Most common abilities it can block: Ezreal's True Shot Barrage, Braum's Glacial Fissure, Jin's Final Curtain, Ashe's Enchanted Crystal Arrow, and many more. Third ability is Sweeping Blade, which is a targeted dash with a very short cooldown, but has a separate cooldown for each champion hit with this ability, that is shown as a timer around marked enemies. Marked enemies cannot be targeted using Sweeping Blade again for its duration. Yasuo's ultimate is called Last Breath, and it is a burst damage knock-up extender. It can only be used on airborne enemies, and it extends the airborne status for the duration of the ultimate. Since it's an AoE ability, then you are able to cast your ultimate on multiple enemies if they are all airborne. Because of this ability, Yasuo synergizes extremely well with champions like Janna, Alistar, Malphite, who all have knock-up abilities in their kit. This is the ability order: Q first, E second, W third, and of course always upgrade your ultimate when you can. Now, as we understand Yasuo's kit, it's easier to get hang of what items synergize best with him. Because Yasuo's passive doubles the crit, and his Q cooldown is reduced by attack speed, then it's clear that first core item should be something that gives both crit and attack speed, and in Wild Rift perfect item for that is Phantom Dancer. This item does not only give you crit and attack speed, but also movement speed as well as one extra shield which comes very handy in duels. I see some guides suggest Static Shiv instead of Phantom Dancer, but in reality Static Shiv on Yasuo is bad pick in Wild Rift, because AoE damage coming from its passive will kill minions really fast, and those minions are the source of mobility for Yasuo. Second core item is of course Infinity Edge because it gives loads of damage and it increases critical strike rate. So once you have built both Phantom Dancer and Infinity Edge, then you have reached the maximum critical strike chance that caps at 100%. As for the boots, you should go with Gluttonous Greaves for some offensive stats. In case you are behind against enemy laner who deals a lot of magic damage, then go with Mercury's Treads. Same goes with Heavy AD comp. If enemy team has loads of physical damage dealers, then you might want to go with Ninja Tabis. Speaking about enchantments, then you want to go for Quicksilver Enchant. This is really good if enemy team has a lot of hard CC. Also you might want to consider taking Teleport Enchant in case you are going to split push. Now the last 3 items are more situational depending on the matchup. I personally like to go for Blade of the Ruined King for some lifesteal, as well as to get that extra attack speed for lower cooldown on Q, and also it deals bonus physical damage equal to 6% of the enemy's current health, which comes useful against tanky champions. Then Death's Dance to have some HP, more attack damage and cooldown reduction. Guardian Angel for that nice passive and armor. In case enemy has heavy tank team, then consider buying Mortal Reminder, or if you are laning against bursty ability power champions like Fizz or Akali, then buy early Hex Drinker and finish the item once you have your core items. In the laning phase your playstyle changes depending on the type of champion you are against. If you are against melee champion, you want to abuse them early on as much as you can, because Yasuo has one of the strongest level 1s. When you have level 2 with Q and E unlocked, then you should look for simple trades like dash in, auto attack Q, and dash out, or when you have stacked Q, then dash onto enemy with E and right away use third Q plus auto attack, and E out if possible. These are the trades you should almost always come out winning if the passive's shield is up. The playstyle is quite opposite when going against ranged champions. Laning against them you might want to play more passively until you find an opening. It is better to be defensive and pick up as much farm as you can, and wait until your opponent makes a mistake, or until you outscale. In mid and late game Yasuo has 2 options, to team fight, or to split push. He is really good at both of them, but only if you know how to team fight, and when to split push. So first of all, team fighting as Yasuo. In team fights you have to be patient and get your Steel Tempest stacked. Once you have 3 stacks, you can look for and engage on multiple enemies with your ultimate. Before you use ultimate, make sure that your team is nearby and ready to follow. Imagine landing that 5-man ultimate while your team is not there and you end up dying. Not only you are on that fountain counting seconds until respawn, but you are also getting flamed until the end of the game. Definitely not something nice to experience. When team fighting, make sure that you are only blocking important damage and CC with Wind Wall. Correct use of this ability can turn the fights in your favor. Yasuo has different ways of being useful in a team fight, and the 2 most common ones are him assassinating enemy's backline. The idea here is to blow up the backline as soon as possible, and then clean up the remaining targets with the rest of your team. This is a viable strategy when you are super fed. You can't rely on your marksman to carry the fights. You have someone with reliable CC for your ultimate. Their backline consists of someone posing a huge threat to your team. For example, Jinx, who is super fed. Second way how Yasuo can be useful in team fights is by peeling for your ADC. This strategy is viable when you are behind because you lost lane. Your marksman is doing well. The enemy team has someone who could delete your marksman in an instant. For example, Zed. The best strategy in those cases would be to support your ADC in any way possible, so they can carry the fights. You don't always have to be the one to carry when playing Yasuo. Sometimes it's just better being the one protecting your teammates. Now when it comes to split pushing, then Yasuo has everything split push needs, like fast wave clear, very good at 1v1, and even great potential to 1v2. But you got to remember that split pushing is an option only if your team is underperforming in team fights, and it is clear that your team doesn't stand a chance at 5 versus 5. In those cases, only way out to carry and win the game might be by split pushing. This is the part where you really want to pay attention, because those combos are so useful if you know how and when to use them. First one is called B-Blade. This is excellent combo to catch enemy off guard. You want to use this combo when enemy is close to the minions, so you can dash to the minion, then use your stacked Q and immediately flash onto the enemy you want to knock up. You can also use your ultimate in the end if it's necessary. Instead of EQ flash, you can also use E flash Q combo. 2 example scenarios where you might wanna use Beyblades through the minions like this. Or from one champion to another when you want to assassinate enemy carries. Second combo is called Airblade. If you are able to successfully pull off this combo, then it will deal extra damage compared to usual QR combo. In order to do Airblade, you will need to reduce the cooldown of Q ability as much as you can. The lower its cooldown is, the easier it will be to execute it, and as we spoke earlier in the video about items, then here is another reason you should buy Phantom Dancer as first item, because it gives Yasuo attack speed that lower his Q cooldown. To do this combo you will need to land stacked Q on enemy, wait for Q cooldown to be at 0.6 seconds or less, then E a nearby creep or champion and quickly press your Q and R. This combo optimizes DPS, and once your ultimate's animation finishes you will already have 1 stack on your Q, that allows you to get another tornado quicker. There are loads of tips and tricks that you can do with Yasuo. For example, Yasuo's sweeping blade can be used to dash through the walls. You can only use this trick when visible jungle monsters are on the other side of the wall. It comes especially handy in sticky situations when you have to escape from the enemy, or when you are chasing someone down. Second trick is very useful with the first trick, which is that Yasuo's wind wall grants vision of a small area. So let's say you want to dash over the wall where you know there are jungle monsters, but you don't have a ward, then simply cast your wind wall over the wall, and boom, you can dash to the other side. Third tip is to maximize the time enemies are CC'd by ulting at the last possible moment. Basically, the longer they are CC'd, the longer they can't do any harm to your team. There are actually a lot more combos and tricks to learn about Yasuo, but it would be just too much for one day to learn. In case you are interested in seeing even more in-depth Yasuo tricks, then let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for today. Bye guys.